Welcome back to Afterglow, everyone. I'm super excited about today's guest because I've been getting a lot of comments from y'all asking about how can I start a business? How can I grow my wealth? How can I get better with my financial literacy? And I have the perfect guest for these topics. She goes by the name Your Rich BFF, and she's made such a massive impact on the financial literacy world. She is Vivian Tu.
If you're serious about buying a home, stop showing up to open houses without a pre-approval letter. The realtor will think you're a joke and not take you seriously.
Vivian transitioned from a successful career as a Wall Street trader to becoming a well-known financial educator and content creator. I'd like to think that Vivian is kind of like your financial advisor, but more like a BFF. How she talks about money is so much more relatable and less intimidating than a lot of the other authorities in this space. She's literally a wealth of knowledge, and I really hope you enjoy today's episode. Vivian, welcome to Afterglow. I'm so excited to have you here, and I look forward to learning a lot from you because your content is literally saving people's lives.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I've been a big fan for a while. You literally introduced me to this. So you are
I love that.
You are the trailblazer. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you. For my audience who aren't aware of you, I was wondering if you can give a quick intro on who you are and what you do.
Yeah. Everybody, my name is Vivian Tu, aka Your Rich BFF, and your favorite Wall Street girly. Essentially, what I've built with Your Rich BFF is a financial literacy platform. For a really long time, I always felt like financial services companies catered to people who are already older, who are already rich, men, predominantly white, and newsflash, I'm none of those things. Mm-hmm. And so I felt like there was not enough financial education out there for people that look like me and my girlfriends and the people in my life. And unfortunately, we learn math, science, reading, history for K through 12, but the topic that most of us could benefit from is personal finance. 100%. And it's not a federally mandated subject. So when I left my career on Wall Street and actually went into the tech and media industry, a lot of my new coworkers were like, oh, you came from Wall Street. You're going to rebalance my 401k. You're going to tell me which health insurance plan you picked. Are our company stock options even worth anything? And when I told them that, there were little simple steps that they could take to improve their financial lives, they really encouraged me to start putting it on the internet. And so that the same people didn't have to ask me the same question 7 times. I put my very first video on TikTok, and by the end of the week, it had 3 million views.
Stop.
And I had 100,000 followers.
Were you, were you shocked by that?
Shocked, overwhelmed, distraught, so many of those words. I didn't set out to become an influencer or creator. I felt like I was not someone who really wanted to be like a public figure. I think people are always really surprised to find out that I'm quite a private person.
Makes sense.
In my own life.
Yeah.
So
actually a lot of creators, when I talk to them, they're mostly introverts, and a lot, especially the old generation YouTubers.
Are you?
Yeah,
Okay.
I barely talked at all. I have very few friends. I'm very very shy. I'm very, very shy. I grew up really shy my whole life, and creating content was a way to just kind of express myself, And like you, I was just making these videos for fun, and then bam, overnight viral, and so much it's a lot to take in. Shock, like you said, distraught, excited.
But also I didn't have a content plan. It wasn't I was I have a video for this week and a video for next week. It was I made this video, it went viral. I didn't think that was going to happen. And suddenly now there's an expectation that I'm posting every single day.
Yeah.
Somehow
welcome to the journey.
Yeah, somehow
it shows you the algorithm, the people, somehow the universe conspired and chose you, because I actually think you came at the perfect time. Mm-hmm. Because I've noticed too, growing up, I wasn't exposed to any financial education. And you're absolutely right. From kindergarten to, senior year of high school, we're taught social studies and geography.
This is social studies. You need to know how to use money in society.
I know, but I literally thought I was actually having a discussion with my friend the other day. I'm like, yo, we were in school for so long, but like, what the hell did we learn?
No, nothing.
We learned nothing. I mean, no offense. I mean, I did learn some things, but the most impactful thing that you can learn and be exposed to is financial literacy.
Yeah, I'm so glad I learned how to dissect an owl pellet, because that comes in handy every single year when it's dissect an owl pellet season. Because I didn't want to know how to file a tax return or anything.
Yeah.
So it's crazy that we don't get
I think it's wonderful. And I'm so excited to kind of like dive deep into your world and just all the fun things that you're doing. So I like to start off the podcast with a fun icebreaker.
Okay.
So since you are the queen of finance, I'm curious to know, if you could create a new currency, what would you name it and what would it look like?
Ooh, I mean, is this like so narcissistic that I'd want it to be like BFF bucks?
No, not at all. BFF bucks is awesome. BFF bucks?
Yeah, BFF bucks. And you know what? They would
What would be on it? Yeah, what would it look like?
First off, everybody thinks I would choose a paper currency, but this is a fantastical world. So what I would do is I would actually have them, I don't know if you've seen like the old, some of the Asian currencies, they have a hole in the middle of the coin.
Yes.
So you can put them on stuff. And I'm like, I would make a necklace out of this.
Yeah.
So they would be BFF bucks, even though they were coins, like obviously gold, gotta be high end looking.
Exactly.
But you'd wear them as jewelry. And they would be called BFF bucks.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I love that you can wear it too.
Yeah.
I want some BFF bucks. Maybe you can make it as merch or something later on.
That'd be so funny.
Okay, cool. That's I for some reason I would have thought you would have said, I don't know, like,
Why, you thought I would have gone like the digital route?
maybe digital, but it's interesting that you kind of went and you paid homage to like the past.
Yeah.
Like the Asian money with the hole in it.
Yeah.
And people stick a rope through it. And
Yeah, exactly. Like the merchants.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to jump right into it. I feel like in today's timeline, inflation is really bad. Mm-hmm. It's hard to save. It's even hard to pay the bills.
Yeah.
How can people today, what are everyday things they can do to start building that generational wealth or some savings?
Yeah. So I think one thing that the pop culture media has gotten wrong is that they've in particular pointed the finger at women and made headlines that say things like confessions of a shopaholic, or you love to splurge, you're an overspender. And it's created this narrative that women are bad with money, which is so far from the truth, because more single women than single men own homes in all 50 states. They have less debt in every single category, with the exception of student loan debt, because I'm sure you've seen the headline, women are becoming more and more educated.
Right.
And last but not least, like Fidelity even did a study comparing women and men's portfolios, and the women's portfolios outperformed the men's, because oftentimes women are more traditional buy and hold investors, while men may partake in day trading, things like that. And frankly, with many of those, you're destined to lose money.
Yeah, it's basically gambling.
It's basically gambling.
Yeah.
So my big thing about like building generational wealth and being mindful and saving money is, do not buy into the scrimp save, or that mindset of you need to avoid the avocado toast, you can't have a coffee in the morning. Yes, it is helpful to find extra dollars by doing that, but you cannot budget your way out of a hole or budget your way out of a deficit. So the very first thing you need to do is actually earn more money. Easiest thing you can do is make sure that you are asking for a raise every single year. I always tell people you need to be asking for 10 to 15%, and everybody gasps and they're like, oh my God, Vivian, that's never going to happen. Did I say it was guaranteed to happen every year? No. But if you ask for 10 to 15 and you get an 8% raise because you started your negotiation higher, that is going to keep you up with inflation, if not beat inflation a little bit.
Yeah.
Meaning next year you'll make more money than you did this year. However, if you're just sitting there and saying, okay, cool, like I'll take the 2% inflation raise, you will likely make less money next year than you did this year.
Yeah.
So you need to maximize your income. 2, it's all about setting up systems that make it so mindless for you to be good with your money. Emotions get in the way of our decision making. So what I always say is go into your workplace portal or whatever payment thing that you have set up as an employee, and have, instead of 100% of your check go into your checking account, have 90% of it go there. And then 5% can go towards savings, 5% can go towards your investment account. And make it an automatic deposit. That way, you don't have to be the one to say, I could put this money away into savings, or I could buy a new bag. Like, you don't want to have that temptation. That money is just not going to your checking account. That money is not for today you. That money is for future you. And future you is going to be so grateful.
I think you actually hit it on the nail with that. It's interesting because, you know, like in Chinese culture, they save, right?
Yeah.
And my friend made this point. My friend's like in the Chinese language, well, I'm not Chinese, but he is, right? In Chinese language, they don't have a past, present, or tense. Like, they don't have that, right? And because in a way, you are, the future you is still you.
Yes.
And so in their language, it's embedded in their culture that it's in their nature to essentially be more of a mindful saving type of culture, because it's embedded in the language. So it's interesting how, like, even how you perceive who you are today versus the past versus the future, it actually influences a lot on your decision making. And I feel like so many people are so disconnected from their future self. They don't think about their future self because they're too much in the moment right now. Yeah. And I'm a big believer in, like, it's good to be present, but it's also good to, like, kind of project yourself in the future. Like, where do you see yourself in 10 years? And are you doing something that your future self would be thankful for, right? I think that's amazing what you were just saying, like how you put in these mechanisms to prevent you, because you're thinking about your future self. You're like, I know right now I want a bag, but my future self would rather have a mortgage for a house.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And I think the last one is talking to your friends about money, because we've been told for so long that it's tacky and rude and taboo to talk to your friends about money. I promise you, the rich guys on the golf course, they are talking about their investments. They are talking about how much they get paid. They're talking about how much their kids' private school tuition is, okay? But the reason why this is so important is not just for the sake of having the conversation, but when you find out that you are not being paid fairly, or you are able to get better elsewhere, it gives you a level of power that you did not have before. That information, that knowledge is power. And I always say this is like such a New Yorker thing, but in New York, there is one financial conversation that is never taboo to have. And you can ask someone you met 15 minutes ago. You go to their apartment, you go to a house party, and you're like, oh my God, this place is so nice. The immediate follow-up is, do you mind me asking, how much do you pay in rent each month? And that is so powerful, because during moments like that, if you find out they're spending similar rent to you, but their apartment's way nicer, the immediate thing you do then is to find a unit in their building. And by understanding what price and value are assigned and attributed to your work, to what you're paying for, and the experiences you can have throughout your life, you are able to better negotiate. And we can talk about that in a little bit, but rich people negotiate everything.
They know their worth. They know their power. Yeah. I think to be a good negotiator, you need to have confidence. And this is why what you're doing with your platform, you're giving people the confidence where they can really speak from a place of abundance and not scarcity mindset. Because I think for the longest time, even like when I was starting off in my career and I was getting brand deals, I really lowballed myself.
Oh, same.
Because I didn't have I didn't value myself. And so I thought, I'll just do this for free, right? And there was, right? Exactly. There was
that makes my skin crawl.
I know, but that was my mindset. So it really, money is a tool. It's really your mindset, right? And I think you teach this a lot about the mindset.
In my book, Rich AF, it's a New York Times bestseller. I talk so much about that money mindset, and you are so, so right. My very first brand deal, I won't name names, they came in and they said, how much would you like to be paid for a 3-video series? And this was like height of viral growth. Like, I was gaining an additional 50,000 followers every single day. I didn't know what to ask for, even though I feel like I'm a pretty staunch negotiator in my day-to-day life. And it's just because when you are in a new environment and you don't have anyone to talk to about it, you don't know
absolutely
what the going rate is for something like that.
Did you have any creator friends at all? Or
that's what started, I had to start having that conversation with my creator friends and asking, what do you ask? Like, what are you asking for? Like,
Yeah.
maybe our followings are different, or maybe our topics or like our niches are different.
But there's like brackets.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
there's brackets
there
to
are
this.
basic ranges, and I think that has been immensely helpful.
Nice.
In getting my worth, and obviously making sure that I hired a team that had my best interests at heart, and do this for a living day in and day out.
Yeah. We were talking about our future self and all that. I kind of want to go to the past self.
Yeah.
What was your relationship like with money back then?
Yeah, back in the day, little Viv, I'm very lucky. I am the only daughter to two very loving Chinese immigrant parents. They immigrated to the U.S. in their early 20s, but I think they have always very much had a scarcity mindset in that they came to this country and they were like, our job is to survive. Like, we will take what we can get and we will put our heads down and nose to the grindstone and work hard. And maybe, just maybe, somebody will realize that we are hard workers and deserve to be paid a little bit more. I, however, learned from a lot of their skills and traits. So I'm very good at budgeting. I'm very good at saving. But it was never discussed in my family, like how to grow our wealth, how to negotiate for more, how to ask for more. Because, the TV series Fresh Off the Boat, they had a line that I think the mom said to one of the sons, and it was like, don't make waves. Like, my parents always instilled in me, they were like, just do your best and you will be noticed. And don't make waves. Don't cause drama. Don't cause a
Don't be
kerfuffle.
the nail that sticks out, right?
Exactly.
Because the hammer.
But I'm just like nothing like that.
Yeah.
I am very strong-willed, very loud, very bold.
That's usually how it is. Karmically speaking,
yeah,
right?
karmically speaking.
Right?
But also, I think it's really interesting because they came to this country, so their thought was to survive.
Yeah.
But I have a sense of American entitlement, and not necessarily in the bad way, but like, I feel entitled to be here.
Well, you're American.
Yes, I'm a U.S. citizen.
You're
I have
American.
a blue passport.
Yeah.
I deserve to not only survive, but to thrive.
Well, there's a reason why they call it the American dream.
But
you dream.
I am my parents' American dream.
Yeah.
Because
Girl, that's gonna make me cry.
Yeah, I know. I mean, like, I think about all the sacrifices they made to get me to where I am, but I want to make sure that what I'm doing now makes them proud. And so I learned the budgeting and saving piece from them. But when I started my first job and I had my own rich dad, poor dad moment, I became the mentee to the only other Asian woman on the desk.
Wow.
And she was so tough on me, but she took care of me like a big sister.
Yeah.
She was the one who was like, are you contributing to your 401k? And I was like, what is a 401k? She took care of me in a way that she said she didn't have when she was coming up in the industry. And I have to imagine it was 10 times as harsh and tough for her back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
Much less, the adversity I faced as a young woman in the late 2010s. Like, she really, I credit her so much of my growth as a person and so much of what I learned to her, so much so that I even dedicated my book to her.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, I feel like we come across and we meet people who it's like that saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears, right?
Yeah.
And there she was.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And she must be so proud of you too.
She is. And I feel so bad for people who don't find a mentor the way I did, because there were so many pitfalls in my life that were avoided because of her, both in my career, but also just in my personal life.
Yeah.
Like, I wish every single like young 20-something person could have a mentor.
I agree with you. I never had one.
Yeah.
So I had to go through so many valleys.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of built that way. I'm meant to learn the hard way, but I wish back then in my 20s I had a mentor to help guide me, because it's like you were saying, you weren't prepared for any of this, right? The virality, and even like, I'm sure when you were working in Wall Street and all that, there's just so much unknown.
Yeah.
And it is kind of like a boys' club. That's what
Without
I hear.
a doubt.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think
and it must have felt very isolating for you.
it was super isolating. But what people don't even talk about is like, a lot of these financial firms make a great effort to hire diverse, like, incoming analyst classes. So when you see the pamphlet of like who they hired, it looks like the UN, right?
Yeah.
Once you get there, though, there is actually very little infrastructure to foster that talent. And so suddenly, you know, you get into this program and you think you're good, but the guy intern who played football at Yale, like, he has 8 people on the team he can go and be pals with. But when you're someone who looks like me, like, my mentor was it. Like, I didn't have anybody else I could identify with. And I am so lucky that I had that, because many people join teams and desks that they probably didn't have that. And when you actually look at the top of the pyramid of, like, the executive, you know, members, the C-suite, it's still predominantly white, predominantly male. And I think that's unfortunate when they make such a show of diversity and inclusion hiring. It's like, okay, well, what about diversity and inclusion promoting? Diversity and inclusion fostering of talent?
Yeah.
Like, don't just do the beginning. You got to follow through.
These people who are on the top, they're so comfortable being there. They don't want to change it. And I'm a big believer in don't try to change the system, create a new one.
Yeah.
And this is exactly what you're doing. Yeah. You left that world and you're making content and you're sharing it to, I mean, I felt like it was gatekept. They were gatekeeping it from basically everyday people.
But, like, Michelle, what would incentivize them to not gatekeep it, right?
Exactly.
Like, they still need someone to pump their gas and, you know, swipe their groceries and DoorDash their food and, like, do their hair and nails and whatever. Like, the people in power are incentivized to keep it that way because they need you to do their, you know, dirty jobs or the jobs they don't want to do. When people actually get this information, they are able to not only just level up their own lives and their careers. Suddenly, the woman doing nails at the nail salon says, I'm going to start my own nail salon. Yeah. Suddenly, they become an entrepreneur.
I'm going to work my own schedule.
Correct.
I'm going to have my own salon.
Correct. And suddenly, they know what they're doing and they know what their time is worth. Yeah. And it is incredibly powerful and empowering to have that knowledge. And I think we all deserve it.
I was going to ask you, now that we're kind of on this topic, is when do you think people, like, in the world of exploring, should I be a business owner or not? What are the characteristics you think? You're like laughing right now.
I'm laughing.
Because I know you probably have some really good, like, I'm sure you've seen some stuff too, but I always tell people, they're like, I want to be an entrepreneur. It's like, it's one thing to want it. It's another thing to be it.
Yeah. Okay. So 2 hot tips. 1, use your 9 to 5 to fund your 5 to 9. So
I love that.
People don't know this. I actually did Your Rich BFF full time. I did it part-time while I was working a full-time job for a year and 3 months.
I believe it. I totally believe it.
I wanted to rip my hair out by the end of it.
That must have been so much.
Because I was like, first off, I'm exhausted from doing my day job. But then on the weekends, I don't even get to rest. Yeah. On Saturdays, I'm writing scripts. And on Sundays, I'm putting on an outfit, recording one video, taking it off. Recording a second video, taking it off, recording
wearing
the third
pajamas
video.
On the bottom.
No, literally, sweatpants on the bottom all the way. And it was so exhausting. Yeah. But because I had my full-time job, one that I could depend on, one that was a high-earning job, I felt really comfortable when I finally decided to make the leap because I had set aside $100,000 in cash. And I said, if I do not get paid for the next year of Rich BFF, this money can pay my rent. Yeah. It can pay for groceries. I still get to go on vacation.
Smart, yeah.
I do not have to change my lifestyle for 365 days, even if I don't make $1. Fortunately, that didn't end up being the case. I did make money. I did have, you know, a really, really strong creator career from jump. But that would not have been the case, and I wouldn't have had that confidence if I didn't give it a little time.
You need to give it time.
You need to be uncomfortable for a minute.
You do. I think so many people, they think it's just a waltz on the street. This is not Disneyland. This is
absolutely not.
Literally like it's either you invest it's either you invest money into this or you invest your time. But both is the same thing. Money and time, they're both energy, right? Yeah. And I mean, for me at least, I there was a catalyst when I fully quit my job as a waitress, and I even quit college to fully commit to YouTube. And this was when I was making around like, I think I was pulling in 20K a month. Yeah. Just the YouTube AdSense. Yeah. This was when the CPMs are really good. I mean, it's not like that now.
This is the heyday
This was
YouTube.
The golden era of YouTube, right? And I told myself before I made that money, when I was making 5 cents a day, right? This was like early. I told myself, if I can break even and make $200 a week from YouTube, I'll quit my job as a waitress. Yeah. because I worked on the weekends and I made $200 a weekend. I was making $500 on YouTube, and it was so easy for me to quit. But you're absolutely right. Having that 9 to 5 pays for, what would you say? Your
5 to 9.
5 to 9?
Yeah.
I love that.
And then I think the second piece is, I think there's so much, I don't even want to call it, but like entrepreneurship porn on the internet.
Oh, totally.
Where they're
That's
like,
such a
yeah,
good,
like the hustle, you gotta do the thing, you gotta have your own company. It's like, do you actually understand that the vast majority of millionaires do it the slow way? They have a W-2 job, they get paid well, they spend less than they get paid, and they invest the difference, and by the time they retire, they have a couple $1,000,000.
Yeah.
That is the most dependable track to have financial success. Being an entrepreneur is high risk, but potential high return. And before people do this, you actually have to think about how much you love what you are about to embark on.
You
because
have to.
It will not be sunshine and rainbows every single day. It'll actually be, most days, thunderstorms and hail.
Yep.
And something that you can do easily to actually determine whether or not you're ready to like take this business full time, like if you really, really, truly love it, and if it's like a great idea, is determining your Ikigai. It's a Japanese phrase of how to find your purpose. So what you should imagine is 4 circles, and they're all in a Venn diagram, so they all interlace in like a tiny, tiny piece in the middle. And to find your Ikigai, you need to have 4 traits. Is the thing that you're doing something that you love doing, something you're good at, something the world needs, and something you can make money doing? And so if the answer to all of that is yes, if you have tested the market and there is a demand for it, people really need this product or service or what have you, and you think you can do it better than anybody else, it brings you joy, and it helps to pay your bills, that is the point at which you're like, okay, let's give it a shot. But I don't want to sugarcoat this. I was very lucky in that when I left my full-time job, even with this $100,000 in cash, I had a golden parachute. And that golden parachute was my now husband. I talked to him about this. We'd already been together for 5 years. And I was like, what if I can't make rent one month? And he said, lucky for you, I still work in finance, and there's no way I'm going to let you starve. And because he was willing to say, I will bail you out of trouble, I was able to jump off this cliff knowing that I had a parachute on my back.
Wow, yeah.
And I've never had to deploy the parachute. I'm very lucky. You know, I was able to jump and keep jumping and jumping and jumping. But like, you have to have a backup plan. And I will say, if you want to be an entrepreneur, this is like the weirdest advice that I give, but like if you have a partner who has a traditional W-2 job, chef's kiss.
Yeah.
Because
ideal. Yeah.
I have health insurance in a way that many entrepreneurs don't. I have benefits in a way that many entrepreneurs don't because I have a spouse who still has a traditional job. Like, it's hard. You got to pay for your own health insurance. It's hard. You got to like make sure that you are setting aside your own retirement money. Like, you have to take care of you. And you take for granted so many of the things that are done for you and done on your behalf when you work for someone else.
I do feel like there is, you're totally right, the whole entrepreneur porn.
Yeah.
It kind of, it over glorifies that title. Like, now everyone's thinking, if they're an employee, they're thinking, well, I should be a boss. It's like, you know, are you good at solving problems? Because that's 99% of your job is solving problems. If you don't like solving problems, then you shouldn't be a boss.
And the worst,
or an entrepreneur.
The worst thing is people actually use case studies like you and me and pretend like we are the norm. I am so sorry, but of the, you know, number of Michelles out there and the number of Vivians out there, there are 1,000x people who don't have their brands take off. They have, you know, I am very fortunate. I make a great lucrative living being a creator, but in fact, like almost half of creators actually make less than $15,000 a year. You have to keep your full-time job.
It's true.
Like, when people point to us as case studies, we should not be the case study.
Yeah, we're the 1%.
Correct.
Yeah.
The median person doing what we do should be the case study.
They do pretty well though. Like, I feel like that if they're a content creator, it's almost like a side hustle. Right? It's like, it's a side hustle that
is a great
lucrative
side hustle.
side hustle. Yeah.
Do this as your side hustle. But until your side hustle income can eclipse your full-time job and the benefits essentially outweigh the risks, at least for a certain amount of time, I don't recommend going full-time with your entrepreneurship piece unless you know that it's going to be able to fund your lifestyle.
Yeah.
We talk so much about like, follow your passion. It's like, okay, that's irresponsible advice.
I was about that when I was in my 20s, follow
Yeah.
your passion, but then I realized sometimes your passion changes. Like
Yeah.
you change, your heart can deceive you. And
Yes.
sometimes it changes, but I'm a big believer in you should love what you do.
Correct.
Just instead of doing what you love what you do. And also if you're good at doing it, keep doing it. Because I think so many people, they fantasize or they romanticize a type of job or a type of career they want. I knew this guy, he wanted to be a rock star. And he was not good at singing. He was decent at the bass guitar, right?
Yeah.
And he was so distraught. Like his whole dream was becoming a rock star.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's so many unspoken rock stars around the world that we don't know of, right?
Yeah.
That never made it, like you said, with creators too. But instead he decided, you know what? I still love music. I love this industry. I'm going to become a lawyer and help represent rock stars and music stars. And that's what he does now. He's a lawyer and he helps represent, and he does a lot of the legal stuff for a lot of musicians.
Yeah.
And he still has a collection of guitars in his
Yeah.
office and stuff. And I'm like, that to me is a mature decision.
Yeah.
Is like that. So for me, it's like, it is possible, but also be open to other opportunities. I feel like so many people get so fixated on an idea of what they should become.
Especially as your life changes, priorities change. You know,
Yeah.
I think when you maybe find a partner or decide to have children, or, you know, maybe you want to get a dog, or you want to start, you know, hitting certain milestones in your life of buying a car, buying a home, like your priorities will change. And I've noticed that in myself and in my business too. The phrase I like to use is, in my early 20s, I was buying stuff I didn't need with money I didn't have to impress people I didn't even like.
Oh, totally.
And I think then I certainly didn't have the kind of money I have now. And I so desperately wanted to prove to people I did. And so when you start this new fancy Wall Street career, you start to feel the need to really keep up. And back in our parents' generation, it was very much keeping up with the Joneses. But they would take their little binoculars, look across the street at, you know, the Joneses, and they'd be like, the Joneses got a new station wagon, or the Joneses just got a flat screen TV, whatever. But there was a certain level of proximity where they could only visibly see people who were relatively in the same income bracket. However, now with the rise of social media, keeping up with the Joneses is keeping up with the Kardashians. And we have such an intimate look into the lives of people whose money does not move the same way ours does. And suddenly you're seeing photos of people on private jets. You're seeing photos of people who have collections, not just one, but like a collection of rainbow Birkins. And you start to think that's normal. And you are watching a highlight reel of not just, oh, I am going on vacation, but every single one of your friends is going on vacation after each other. So you think everybody's on vacation the entire time, when in reality, your friend might only be on vacation 1 week, and then they come home and then they stop posting because they're back to the grind. But if friend A goes on vacation, then friend B goes on vacation, friend C goes on vacation, you think people are on vacation the entire summer, and you think that you have to be on vacation the entire summer. And I spent so much money trying to prove to people I was having a good time, I was rich, I had the sauce, when in fact I did not. And now that I actually have the money to be doing that, I don't feel the need to prove anything to anybody. Like, I'm gonna sit on my Friday night and I don't need to go out and show you that I'm at a fancy tasting menu type restaurant. Like, I can order a pizza, put on my footy pajamas with my husband, and we can watch a movie on Netflix, all for the low cost of maybe $20, $30, all in, including the pizza, the soda, and the movie. And I'm having a better time than I was having on Friday nights when I was posting, went to this underground concert. The cover was $50 to see a band that I didn't even know, getting, you know, $22 cocktails, running around the city, taking, you know, dozens of Ubers, and wearing a new outfit. I was spending so much money to impress people. And now I spend money to impress me.
I everything you're saying, I just feel like it really mirrors my life. There was a moment when it's so true, like what you were saying. I was trying to impress people. I was buying the designer stuff, and I don't know what happened, but there was a moment where I'm like, who cares about any of this? And when I had like a nice cash out and I had all this money, like literally the first thing I wanted to do was buy KFC, like buy whatever I wanted from KFC and just treat all my friends. Because growing up, like we couldn't afford it, right?
Yeah.
We couldn't afford to like eat out, and KFC was something I really loved. And like it's interesting when you do have the sauce, when you do make it. There's almost like this. I like to call it like an ego death in a weird way. Like it is like a slight ego death of like the false self that you were pretending. That's when you realize that was false. That's not me.
Yeah.
And now that I have this, I could still be that person, but I don't want to anymore.
But you know what's so funny? And I watched this video of yours. I hate that like I'm coming out as such a fangirl.
Oh no,
but,
it's totally fine.
But you know, I think when you get that first taste, a little bit of money, you're out there buying the designer stuff that's all depreciating assets. I remember when you made a video, and I don't even know if you made the video or someone made the video about you when you bought your home.
Yeah.
And you were like, this is the culmination. This is the peak.
Yeah.
This is the payoff of all the hard work that I've done. I never thought I was going to own a home. And then you show off like something that looks like it's straight out of Architectural Digest. Like you made an investment in likely an appreciating property.
Yeah.
You designed it in a way that brings you calm and joy. And it was something that childhood you never thought you would have. That is going to feel and heal you in a way that no designer bag ever could. And the funniest thing is this is the piece of advice that my mentor gave me. As you can see, she's such a big impact in my life. She told me nothing ever feels good as your first designer bag. The first bag I bought myself, that was blood, sweat, tears money, baby. Like I earned that money sitting at my desk for 14 hours a day, chained to the trading desk. And it was a black Saffiano leather Prada bag. It was like a little executive tote. I felt so cool walking into the office the day after I got it. And the way I felt, because it had healed a part of me growing up that like my parents told me we couldn't get stuff like that, like it was amazing. So I thought when I went and bought my second bag, it would feel just as amazing. It didn't even feel half as good, maybe not even a quarter. And I was like, what the hell did I just spend $2,000 on? I would rather have that money sitting in my bank, you know, as savings or being invested, growing, earning money for me. I regretted that second bag so much because I bought it prematurely with, frankly, money that I shouldn't have been spending on it. And it felt so different than that first purse. And after that, I think my designer, like that was kind of like the beginning of the end for the design start.
Your mentor is right.
Yeah,
your mentor knew.
She really is.
Wow. Yeah, like that's so true. I remember my first designer bag. You're right. There's after that, like
the way you felt walking out of that store with that bag in your hands, it wasn't even about the bag. It was about the fact that you had financial agency and could get it for yourself.
Yeah, it is more about that. And I love what you said about healing the inner child, especially children of immigrants. Like we grow up with so much of that scarcity mindset that we, you know, that when you're able to like earn the money and you can afford these things, it is healing. It is yours. It's so healing.
And there's nothing like, I think nowadays for me, not even buying stuff for me, but buying stuff for my parents, or not even stuff.
I love
experiences.
That more. Experiences, buying stuff for other people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, I think the biggest fight that my parents and I, one of the biggest fights that we got into when I was like a preteen was I went to the mall and bought some ripped jeans. I came home and the receipt was still in the bag, and my mom looked at it, saw how much they cost, and she and I got into a big blowout World War III fight. And I said, I was like, well, the girl I was with, my friend, she got a pair too. And she looked me in the eye and she like, you know, her eyes were watering up, and she said, well, her parents are doctors. Like your parents are not millionaires. It was like doctors or lawyers, or like her parents had better paying jobs than my parents. And that was the first moment I realized that people's families' financial situations were very different.
Oh, wow.
And we had to live differently. And we had a smaller house and we did XYZ.
Yeah.
And I stormed up to my room, slammed the door as an angsty teenager does.
Yeah, we've all been there.
But I was like, I never want to feel this way again.
Yeah.
I never want to feel like I cannot do something for myself that I want to do because it has to be my own money. And
interesting.
I made like a mental pact to be like, when I grow up, I will be rich. I will be so rich, no one will ever tell me I can't buy ripped jeans ever again. And ripped jeans weren't ripped jeans. They stood for, that decision making, that freedom.
The agency.
Yeah. And so now being able to send my parents on an all expenses paid vacation, being able to buy their flights out to certain places when I know they're traveling, to upgrade them from economy to business class so that they don't have to sit upright for 12 hours. Like, these are all the things that bring me a level of joy that, like,
that's the luxury of life.
That's the luxury.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I always tell people, like, money, the best thing money buys for you is time.
You can buy back that time.
Yeah. You can buy back time. You can buy yourself time to reflect and think.
And it can buy you options.
Yeah. Yeah.
The option
comfort.
To not take the subway at 11 p.m. at night, to just hop in an Uber and not worry about it. Like, that is freedom. And when you have it, it's security for the first time.
Absolutely. But I feel like the relationship with money, pertaining to the youth is so different compared to like us, our generation. I'm assuming we're closer enough in age, right? You're Gen Z, but I'm talking about the kids right now. They're growing up watching like YouTubers, these giant houses, or the popular ones, right, that are spending millions of dollars for a game show, or like you were saying, the entrepreneur porn that we're seeing. There's so much of this, and I'm wondering, because I remember as a kid, there used to be TV shows like The Simple Life. It was like Paris Hilton and Nicole Richie, right? There was like millionaire stuff, but that was program TV, and it was different. But now it's literally on your phone. You get exposed to it all the time. I'm almost kind of concerned about how the youth's relationship with money now has become, it's just a little more negative, meaning like their worth is attached to money. Mm-hmm. That's the problem. So for me, like, money is a tool. You can use it to buy time. You could do it to, like, with your parents, pay all expense paid trip. But the problem is people who attach their value to money. I think that's something that needs to be addressed.
I don't even know if it's that they attach their value to money, but rather the perception around it. So I think I'm like younger millennial, like, age, like very much the tail end of that period. And I would say like the millennial generation and Gen Xers for sure, like, our worth was like tied to our careers.
Yeah.
Boomers were like, my worth is tied to my family dynamic. With Gen Z, I feel like their worth is tied to like social currency. So
it is, yeah.
They want clout. And what is an easy way to get clout is to look like you're rich and having a really great time. Yeah. And so their relationship has been so clouded, not just like, they are not even just like wanting richness, they want to look rich. And unfortunately, that's an easy way to go broke. Yeah. I mean, that's why you're seeing such a demand and such a desire for dupe content, or, like inspired by Birkin bags type of thing. And like, listen, I'm not like pointing fingers. Like, don't throw stones in a glass house. Like, I too have a cute little Birkin like beach bag that's like made out of terry cloth. But like, I do think there's this unhealthy desire to emulate people that they see online, a la Kardashian level wealth, when you don't have it like that. And you will put yourself in a hole trying to look like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of people like that. It's a huge problem.
It encourages poor financial decision making.
Yeah.
And, I think that, coupled with the fact that, in fairness, they are living in an environment, in a socioeconomic climate that is harder than it has ever been.
This is the hardest, yeah.
Like, it's now cheaper to rent than buy in 70% of all U.S. markets. Mm-hmm. The cost of a U.S. education has 50x'd.
50x? That's crazy.
10x'd in the last 50 years.
That's why I get so upset when boomers, they complain about, the youth saying like, oh, well, college, it's so cheap. It's like,
college was $250 when you went. Yeah. Like, college now is very literally hundreds of thousands of dollars. And not to mention, like, there's already that student loan crisis.
Yep.
Like, people are living at home for longer. Like, it is harder for that generation. And they haven't seen a financial system that works for them. So of course they're going to be like, well, I'd rather spend it today because I don't even know if I'm going to retire.
That's true. There's so much, I'm sure there's so much uncertainty.
There's so much uncertainty. But if you don't start early, actually getting to that retirement does become harder. So like it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If these young people say, I'm not going to worry about my money today because who knows if I'll ever, be able to do all of these things. It's like, well, if you don't start worrying today, you won't ever be able to do these things. Yeah.
And at least they're lucky that they're exposed to this information at such a young age too. So they can start now, like you said. But I think this is, if I was a young Gen Z or even like a Gen Alpha right now, I would learn as much as I can. I would go online and constantly learn.
But would you? Because
I would.
You say that as a millennial, knowing what we now know as millennials, but what if you came up in a time where COVID existed and the last 2 years of your college education were just done at home? What if you were like socially maladjusted? What if you didn't see a future for yourself in the way that you probably do now because of all the hard work that you've put in, but all the results you've seen? Like, I think it's easy for us to sit here on our millennial high horse and say, we would do this, we would do that. But like every single generation above us said that about us.
Yeah.
And so I do think they'll find their own way, they'll find their own path, and maybe there will be technological advancements that do help them. But it's alarming. To your point, it's very alarming.
I mean, like it is, but I just know myself. Like I was in growing up, man.
You're always going to be hungry. Like
it's just like, dude, my dad gambled. Like we got evicted 10 times a year from I had no future. Yeah. And my mom was trying everything in her power to like get me to find a good education. I was in magnet programs. I was trying to, they were putting me in programs to become like a nurse and stuff like that. So I kind of had everything set. My whole life was kind of planned according to my mom. And I was like, F that. I'm going to go to art school. I'm going to and then the YouTube
I know that
came
was
along,
her nightmare.
Right? Yeah, that was her nightmare. But like, I think there are certain people that have it in them, like this survival instinct. Like if I was a teenager during 2020, I saw all the stuff happening. You bet you I would have doubled down on I'm gonna learn everything about AI. I'm gonna basically have my own assistant. I'm gonna learn how to. That's just who I am. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a personality thing too. Like I don't want to just blame generations because every generation has their problems, absolutely.
Without a doubt.
And every generation blames the previous generation, right? But I do feel so bad for the young generation right now because, they printed a quarter of the money supply was printed at 2020. And this is why we saw inflation. And they were saying inflation is transitory. Don't worry. It's like, no, that's not true. My carton of eggs are still like, $10 or $12. And it's not transitory. So it just sucks seeing like how the youth, now I understand why they are probably just disassociating. Yeah. Disassociating and just living in their own little bubble. And it's like, and I think the work that you're doing is so important. Like teaching anyone who wants to know, like if you want to have freedom, and I believe freedom means also having resources, money, right? Yeah. And this is where you can like really live a real, like have a meaningful life. And it's just so sad because I just see like so many, I have a lot of influencer friends. I could tell they're still trying to like show, oh, this is a lifestyle I live. And it's like, no one cares anymore. Yeah. Like no one cares. And also like, I don't know. I think like, I feel like we're going through a change right now. Like everything is going to change in the next few years. Like with how people learn, with our relationship with money. So I think this is a good time to kind of just allow things to happen and just be open to learning.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I mean, we've already seen it in the past couple of years, right? Like it used to be photos. And with the rise of TikTok and COVID, when everybody was at home watching their phones and we didn't have new TV shows coming out, like video became king.
It did. Yeah.
And so I think we always need to be open,
adaptable
to the next thing. And like I remember seeing like these legacy Instagram celebrities being like, Meta has completely screwed us. Like, why won't they just like promote our photos the way that they used to? And it's like, well, why don't you just start making some videos?
Yeah, because videos take more work.
Yeah.
It takes more work.
That's right.
And it
But
goes,
they'd gotten comfortable.
that's the thing.
And
you
that
can't get comfortable.
That led to blank space that was available for the next generation of creators who are video first to come in and swoop in and take some of that market share.
Absolutely. It's so important to, I totally agree with you on this. Like, you have to be uncomfortable. Like, the moment you're comfortable, and I think this is why I don't like being too comfortable, because I'm like, wait, this is too nice.
Someone's about to take my job. Someone's about to take my job.
Well, it's just like, I need to be a little more curious, you know?
Yeah, 100%. And I also think that, like, in our space, like, it's like being an NFL player. You take one bad hit to the knee, you're done. You probably get a very lucrative career for 5 years.
Yeah.
10 if you're lucky and you're like Tom Brady or whatever. I don't know how long his career is. I don't watch football. But you don't get 40 years like a teacher or firefighter or lawyer or whatever does. Like, you got to make those years count, and then you got to do your best to extend that 10 to 15, maybe the 15 to 20, and then the 20 to 25, and try to get a 40-year career out of it. But, like, I will say a lot of the folks that you came up with around your time when you started on YouTube, like, many of them don't have the same type of career longevity that you've had, and it's very impressive.
Yeah, it's no, I'm really blessed. I give a lot of props to good people around me who helped advise me, and so I made really good decisions, but I made really bad decisions too. Like, there were so many things I invested in which didn't make money, or I lost a lot of money. But I feel like sometimes you have to go through these experiences. You have to kind of.
What did you say earlier? You were like, "That's just how I'm built. I have to make the wrong decision and learn."
I have to. Yeah, I just have to. Because you need it to hurt. You need the pain to teach you a lesson. If it didn't hurt, then you're not going to learn anything. So I had to go through that pain.
Sometimes that mistake teaches you more than any win could.
I know. That's why now I'm like, if something bad happens to me, I no longer see it as good or bad. It's like, what was the lesson?
Yeah.
And
teachable moment.
Exactly. Because I don't want this shit to happen again. I don't want this lesson to come back in a different form, you know?
Exactly.
Because I feel like that's how the universe works. If you are not learning something, it's going to keep sending you the same lesson, but in a different person or a situation.
Yeah.
So going back to creating content and just in general work, I'm curious to know, what do you think is going to be the new 9 to 5? Because think about it, like 100 years ago, because you were mentioning, like, today, right? People see women as they're not good at managing money, but like back in the 50s, most women who were working from home, they were the accountants. Yeah. They were the bookkeepers, right? So like, women, we knew our shit. Like,
we've been good with money.
We've been good with money for a long time, regardless of what the media says. But like 100 years ago, or even 200 years ago, most people were either farmers, right? Yeah. They were just having like blue collar work. And today we kind of have more white collar work, office desk. But I feel like soon, now with AI coming, there's going to be a lot of changes. And I'm so curious to see, because I know you're in this space, what do you think is going to be the new 9 to 5?
I think more and more companies are going to have to adopt a hybrid work environment. Post-COVID, basically what we all learned was we can do our jobs just as well from home, and suddenly in between your meetings, you can throw in a load of laundry. Or in between your meetings, you can take your dog for a walk and be present in your actual life in a way that you weren't able to before.
Yeah.
Like, new parents are able to stay with their babies for just a little bit longer, or hold their child halfway through the day and have that close connection. And I think that's all been really good.
Honestly, ever since like 2020 and the lockdown and everyone started doing Zoom calls, even news broadcast people. Yeah. It's like, welcome to being a YouTuber.
Yeah.
Like,
you're like, I've never been more comfortable.
Exactly. But it's interesting because I've had a hybrid here at my office for 6 years, even before the pandemic. Because I know what it's like. I hated working in corporate. I tried it for like a year or two, and I was like, I never want to experience this again, right? So I just love working from home, but I do love a good environment where people can still come and meet together. So hybrid, I think, is the sweet spot.
Hybrid makes sense, but also in part due to the fact that AI is going to replace a lot of rote, repetitive jobs.
Yeah.
So if you have skills that a robot could not replicate, you're in a good spot.
These
But
robots are replicating a lot
lot
of
of
stuff.
things. I know.
They're
But-
replicating so many good
But what I think
things.
is like embracing that versus being in the robots are going to steal our jobs. It's like, okay, if the robot can take away 30% of your day and make it faster and better, what can you do with that 30 instead?
Yeah.
Or maybe even more. Maybe it's they take up half of your day. What can you do in that other 50 to make you indispensable? Because if you choose to embrace all of this new technology and use it to your advantage, you're going to be way better off than people who resist.
Yeah.
The longer you resist, the longer you're unwilling to learn, you're going to be in trouble because
Yeah.
everyone's going to be ahead of the curve the same way that like
Yeah.
people didn't want to embrace the internet. Everyone thought it was like going to be so stupid.
I remember, yeah.
And I mean, look at who's king these days. The
Yeah.
Googles, the Metas, the
Yeah.
the FAN companies of the
Yeah.
world are very much king of everything. And the folks who adopted early, who got in early, are people who are able to make their livings online.
But these people who are early adopters, what drove them? The curiosity.
Correct.
Being uncomfortable.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people, that you just need it in you.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need to light that fire.
You either got the sauce
it's
or
either
you
got
don't.
it or you don't, or you need to find the sauce.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to come
Even
to you.
pretend to have the sauce for a little bit and then
The
see
whole
what the results
fake
are.
it till you make it. I'm okay with that.
Me,
Yeah.
literally for the first 3
Yeah.
months of my
Me
creatordom.
too. Me too. I faked it till I made it, and then when I made it, I'm like, okay, I'm not faking this shit anymore.
Yeah, like
You know,
I
really
know what I'm
need it.
talking about. I'm good at my job.
I'm good now. But I totally agree with you. I think, I think the 9 to 5 hybrid work is going to, I think it is going to be the future. But I'm also curious, like, what type of jobs do you see? Because probably no one in a million years thought what we do is and
Like
not
a
even
real
that long
job?
ago, even 10 years ago, people thought like, what? Michelle, you can make money on YouTube? What do you mean? You make money just like filming yourself? It's like, yeah, people watch this. This is the new TV. No
Yeah.
one wants to really watch TV anymore. They want to watch people like me who they can relate to, they can connect to. So knowing this and knowing AI and all that, like what other jobs do you see that can...
I think a big job growth area right now is people who are in positions supporting people like you and me who've built businesses, because when you are face talent, like you also need like a COO or a CEO to help
yeah.
run your business.
Yeah.
You need someone, you want to start a production company? Do you know anything about production?
It's so
like you need
true.
somebody to do that.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to start another line of business? Do you have someone who can help you go out and raise those VC funds? Do you have someone who can help you make your content when you start having less and less time? Do you have someone who can, come to you with like other great proposals and be building your business with you? And so I think there's always going to be space for on-camera talent like you and myself, but there are even more opportunities for people who want to be behind the scenes.
Oh, yes,
and there is
girl.
money
Yeah.
to be made.
A lot.
Money
yeah.
to be made.
I've like mentored so many people who now have like jobs that are paying them like 6 figures.
Yeah,
Just like managing production or following around a celebrity and filming their content.
yes, the vlogging.
Yeah.
Like somebody has to take that video content
Yeah.
and edit it. And I
Yeah.
think it's so funny. I'm like looking over, peeking at my right hand. My
I
great
love
right
that you
hand.
call her your right hand.
My right hand.
I love that.
Because at first I called her my assistant and that's what I was hiring for, but when you find someone who wants to work in your business and they don't just want to be your assistant and you can see there's hunger,
Yeah.
they're smart enough to do
Yeah.
the job, and suddenly they're
you
doing
empower them. Yeah.
higher cost work.
Yeah.
I mean, I looked at my right hand the other day and I was like, Grace, we need to hire an assistant. She was like, and I was like, not you. Someone to assist you and me.
Oh, wow.
And so
yeah.
it's become an opportunity. I'm like, I don't ever really want to hire an assistant or a long-term assistant. I want someone who comes in, learns the ropes, can do all of that stuff, because we all need to be team players. There have been a number of times where I have done, the grunt labor as well. But okay, when you've been on board for a year and a half, you've been on board for 2 years, what part of the business do you want to own?
Yeah.
What part can you run with 10% input from me? Because my time has become more and more scarce.
Yeah.
And there are some things that I can never outsource. I can never outsource on-camera work.
Yeah.
I can't outsource my interviews. I can't outsource stuff where I need to be there. But over the past few months, like, I haven't been editing my own videos as much because I don't have the time. And I haven't necessarily been thinking up people that I want on my podcast. That has been a joint conversation. They're reaching out to make sure that we can get that scheduling done. There are things that are done just as well in conjunction with another talented person as you can do yourself. Hiring the right team is critically important.
It's like dating. I always tell people.
Oh my God, it's so like dating.
Yeah,
you
it's
have to
like
kiss
dating.
so many frogs before you find a prince. It's awful.
So true. Girl, I'm sure off camera we have a lot of notes to share.
It's also just that gut feeling of like, does this person give me the heebie-jeebies? Or
Exactly.
could I see myself trusting and spending time with this person?
But sometimes some people are really good.
Oh, they're so good.
Masking.
They're fakers.
Yeah, they're so good. And this has been the biggest lesson for me the past few years is meeting very charismatic people who, like, overall, like, they would never hurt you. They would never betray you. They're not lying and stuff. And later, after a year, you find out, wow, like this person was a fraud this entire time. There's so many of that in LA. So I think that's been my biggest lesson. And so I've been learning a lot of this consciousness work because now I immediately know. It's like an instant knowing, yes or no.
Yeah.
And that's helped me tremendously with like friendship, hiring. Like if I'm bringing on anyone and I know energetically, like I know it, like this person is not who they say they are, or they're gonna like, they're saying all the nice things, they're baiting me in, and once I sign the contract, I'm screwed, right?
Yeah.
So that's been helpful for me. But you're right, like finding the right team, it takes years to build. Yeah. It's basically like starting a family.
Yeah. No, it is. It definitely is.
I feel like we could talk for a million years about everything.
We could.
All aspects.
You can take me to lunch after this.
Oh yeah. I'm honestly, I know like if the audience who are listening, if they want to dive deeper on your work, they could just go on your socials and learn about all the hacks that you have on like how to save money, how to grow your money and everything. So I have a friend who has a very interesting relationship with money. He's scared of it. His family comes from money, so he has that golden parachute, but he doesn't allow himself to grow too big, his business, because he's scared of how money changes people, because he's seen it happen with his family, how once they made a lot of money, the dynamic changed and they fought and then they separated and that traumatized him. And I've noticed there's actually a lot of people who have trauma with money. And I was curious to know if you've seen any of that in your space.
Yes, without a doubt. I mean, I think first off, like a lot of financial behaviors and, thoughts are built as a young child. But I want to tell you a story. Okay. So the scientists put a bunch of fleas, like the disgusting little jumping bug thing, into a jar. And normally these fleas can jump 3-4 feet into the air. But what the scientists ended up doing is they capped the jar and the fleas would try to jump and they would hit their heads on the lid. And over time, these fleas would start just jumping slightly shy of the lid. And then the scientists took the lid off, and the assumption would be immediately the fleas would escape. However, even after the lid was removed, that scar tissue, that memory of like, oh, I hit my head before, like prevented the fleas from escaping because they could now only jump as high, slightly below the lid. And I think this is relevant to, this conversation around financial trauma is because so many of us wear around battle scars that aren't even ours. Depending on, to your friend's point of like, if your family grew up with a lot of money and you saw it result in divorce and arguments and a really bitter fight over those dollars, or if you grew up, in my case, like relatively scarce and you saw your parents fight with each other as well as with you about spending money, it builds a lot of muscle memory that you take into adulthood. And even now, I'm in a hugely different financial position than my parents. And a lot of that is due to privilege. I was born in this country. I was offered an education that they certainly did not have access to when they were growing up. I am a native English speaker, so people perceive me in a way very different than my parents who speak broken English.
Yeah.
But I still have moments where I will waste 3 hours price comparing a pair of pants, trying to get the best deal to then get cash back to use the right credit card. I look like Zach Galifianakis in that meme with the math behind him. the pair of pants is only $80. And now, Vivian, you've wasted 2.5 hours of your time. Do you have any idea what that cost you in terms of dollars? Because my time is now worth so much. And I think we have to remember to not let self-limiting thoughts, self-limiting behaviors impact how we live our life, even when the lid is removed.
Did you know that the generation of fleas that were born after also
had the same issue?
Same issue. So it's genetics.
It's truly
epigenetics.
Like, it's in your DNA, and scientists have actually shown that your bodily chemistry and your makeup changes the more hardship you endure throughout your life. Like, you are just more prone to see negativity if you've only experienced negativity in your life. Whereas if you grew up in a very, very, positive environment with bad things happening, and the thing that came out of that was like, oh, we can always clean this up. It can be fixed.
Yeah.
We can sweep it up. It's no problem. You are going to persistently see the optimistic and positive side of life. So I think for us, when it comes to money trauma, is like realizing that a lot of us are, playing movies in our head that aren't our lives. We need to have our own movie. This is not our parents' lifetime. But also, just because you've faced adversity in the past doesn't mean you can't change that for the future and have a very different outlook and change your existing reality. Like, just because you were born broke does not mean you have to die broke. And it is so important for us to realize that there is the ability to change. You are allowed to be better and smarter and different tomorrow than you are today. There's an artist, he said, Francis Picabia, our heads are round so our thoughts can change direction. We are allowed to change our opinions. We are allowed to be smarter when presented with new information. We get to grow, and that's the joy of being human.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think so many people, they carry so much judgment in their hearts, and they don't realize they're projecting it. And I think if we can shift more to that childlike mindset of like openness,
learning,
but having
curiosity.
Discernment. So it's important to have discernment, but it's okay to be uncomfortable. It's okay to, be curious. Yeah, I think like that's going to help so many people become aware of that narrative they tell themselves and rewrite that movie script in their head. But I think it really starts with awareness. Like, and sometimes also that awareness becomes more enlightened when you go through pain.
Yeah.
Something that I've learned in my journey is some people actually need to be crushed by life to finally learn, to be like, okay, I'm ready to surrender.
Yeah.
And
I think
be open.
Being able to experience hardship and find a solution and work your way out of it teaches you.
Yeah.
And some of those learnings are going to be invaluable in the future. And just because it didn't work out this time doesn't mean the lessons you learned this go around won't feed the next opportunity that could potentially work out exactly the way you wanted it to.
Man, I feel like I could just listen to you talk all day. I'm learning so much. But I was curious to know if there's anything else you'd like to share, any PSAs to any of the listeners here.
Yeah, I think it's truly recognize that money is not good or bad. It's understanding that it is something that you can use to build a life that you want. And when you realize that money does not have power over you, you start to have power over your money.
100%. All right, so before we end, I'd love for you to share, how can people find your work?
Yeah, you can find me across all social media as Your Rich BFF. You can listen to my podcast, Net Worth and Chill, wherever you get your podcasts. And my New York Times bestselling book, Rich AF, The Winning Money Mindset, is available in all bookstores, online. Just search Rich AF and you can find the hardcover edition, the ebook, the audiobook, and even signed copies.
Oh, exciting.
Thank
I'm
you
gonna
guys
get
so
one
much.
myself.
Yeah, oh, please, we'll send you one. And if you guys want the book, just go to richaf.me. The URL is a manifestation. So richaf.me, check it out, grab the book.